Good morning, it's Amy, one of the clergy here at St. Thomas Epiphany Episcopal Parish. I'm thinking this morning about crowds. Crowds. Have you seen the crowds? Have you heard about the crowds gathering in New York and Baltimore, Chicago, Los Angeles, in every major city and in every minor city and in every township, every almost wide spot in the road in this country? Have you seen the crowds? I was thinking about the crowds because, as you know, Jesus, everywhere Jesus went, he saw crowds. Everywhere Jesus went, he was surrounded by crowds. How did Jesus respond to the crowds? In this Sunday's gospel reading from Matthew chapter 9, verses 35 to 36, Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, curing every disease and every sickness. When Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Jesus looks at the crowds with compassion. Jesus looks at the crowds with empathy. Jesus looks at the crowds with love. As Jesus sees the crowds made up of individual human beings, each one carrying the image of God within them. Jesus sees their hurt. Jesus sees their pain. Jesus sees their cry for justice and peace, for a world that is much more like the world that God has intended all of us to live in peace and harmony and in justice and working for reconciliation, of sharing what we have, of giving what we have and what we are to others and receiving from others. When Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. I wonder what it might mean for you and I to look upon the crowds that we see today as Jesus looks upon the crowds in scriptures. I wonder what it might mean for you and I to start from the place where Jesus starts, with love, with empathy, with listening, with compassion. In Eugene Peterson's paraphrase of these same verses in Matthew, then Jesus made a circuit of all the towns and villages. He taught in their meeting places, reported kingdom news, and healed their diseased bodies, healed their bruised and hurt lives. When Jesus looked over the crowds, his heart broke. So confused, so aimless they were, like sheep with no shepherd. Jesus then issues the invitation to his disciples. What a huge harvest. How few workers. On your knees, disciples, and pray for harvest hands. Amen.